Welcome to the Travel Ones podcast. Today, my guest is Loulou Ghelichkhani. I hope I said that somewhat correctly.
You did.
There you go. How are you today, Loulou?
I'm doing good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. Appreciate the time. Thank you for being my 200th guest of my podcast. It's going to be, it's exciting for a milestone, and I getting to talk to you again after meeting you briefly at the Beach Life Festival.
Ooh.
So, you're the singer, one of the singers for the Thievery Corporation, 22 plus years.
Correct.
Founder, singer, musician, artist of Night Glitter.
That's right, my Austin band.
There you go. So what else do you have going on? I know obviously you've been touring.
Touring a lot. It's nice that we started again. I guess we started a few dates last summer and then really picked up touring in September and December. We just finished one in March, a little 3-week run. We have 2 more coming up. We have a few dates in Atlanta weekend, actually, and then a 2-week tour throughout Colorado, New Mexico in end of May, and then some European dates, June, July. So I think everyone's been really excited to be back on the road.
Yeah, it was kind of, a lot of the musicians I've spoken to have said it was kind of a curse and a blessing, because for a lot of time you go, God, I wish I could just stay home for a while. And then when you got
there was a lot of silver linings.
Yeah.
For me personally and my family. I realized that I hadn't been home for this, for more than a month and a half or 2-month stretch in 18 years.
Yeah, exactly.
So that was kind of wild to think about it. And I didn't believe it at first, and I kept looking back at dates and thinking about it. And I realized I've never, 18 years is a long time to not be home for more than 2 months.
Yeah. And I did the same thing. And it was just, for me, being at home with my wife for that much, months at a time, it's like, okay.
Trials and tribulations.
Exactly. So you've been a touring musician for 20 plus years.
Mm-hmm. Correct. Actually, I kind of tell people Thievery Corporation, meeting Rob and Eric, and the MCs at the time with Thievery CI was kind of my school, my education, and just becoming a musician and being a band member. I was in school. I was studying art and managing a little coffee shop in DC at the time. So
that's so crazy.
And so that was 22 years ago.
Back then, did you ever think, hey, in 20 years, I will have traveled around the world. I will have been basically working nonstop?
Yes and no. I think you obviously don't know exactly what's going to happen, but I grew up in a family with, a dad who was a traveling soccer player and journalist. We grew up that the world is just full of adventures, and that should be part of your life goal to explore. And I knew that I wanted to travel and I wanted to do something that revolved around the arts. I just didn't really know that I was going to be, touring as a singer.
I was going to ask you, with your upbringing, Iran, France, Maryland, you kind of got to see
already quite a bit.
Yeah. More than most.
Yeah. Actually, growing up in Paris, obviously Europe is just a lot smaller. So, you could drive 4 hours this way and you're in a different country. So by the time I made it to the US as a teenager, I definitely had traveled quite a bit around Europe with my family. And then I realized how actually hard it was to travel around the US. I had so many friends that hadn't really left state or had only done a few states around. So one of my goals, I think, as a teenager and a college student was definitely to try and see as many states, which I feel like being in a band I was able to
Yeah. Have you seen all the states by now?
I have
All 50?
states, some just not playing shows, but
Yeah.
traveling through and little pit stops. But um, yeah, actually, I kind of that run with the few night glitter tours that we did because we actually played in some states that Thievery hadn't played, just the music genre being different and
Right.
also just playing smaller venues. I was kind of, shocked and that there were certain places that I'd never been. And whereas the guys in Night Glitter being in different genres and different the bands.
Yeah. I always find how different is it for you traveling with Thievery, which is a big group with multiple singers and multiple musicians versus Night Glitter being a little more compact? Is there a difference? Is there a preference?
Well, I mean, I always feel like I jumped in to a bigger pool maybe too soon with Thievery. I was really young and had no experience, and my first show was a sold out 9:30 club show
That's crazy.
in DC, and it was definitely a rough night as the first show. Um, a lot of people start with bands and do the van tour
Yeah.
and the dragging gear and merch, and I felt like I kind of jumped into a professional tour with tour buses really early on. I actually really looked forward to touring with Night Glitter. I mean, one being your own project and
Yeah.
your own band, it definitely, it's more exciting. Sorry.
I know.
But I also just, I don't know, sometimes maybe, repetition makes you a little jaded and, you know, the van experience was kind of exciting. And, Night Glitter is my partner and really close friends. So being in a van with people that you love and you're just like doing what you love, I was really excited. I loved it. I felt like made me feel younger and more excited. I had never experienced that. I know some people are like, "Oh, that's disgusting," but it was nice. It is more exhausting dragging your gear around,
Sure.
and so a lot of different things that were harder. But overall, I looked forward to it, and I think we were more in control of our itinerary, and that was kind of the best part, being able to stop anywhere you wanted on the
I was
road.
going to ask you
And
about that. Yeah.
so we did that a lot. We were just able to kind of take a lot of detours on the days off that we had, and um, that was exciting. I really enjoy it, and it's our van, so it just feels like it's your own little bubble.
I totally appreciate that. It's because I was going to ask you, like, when you're with Thievery, you're like I said, you're one of a machine. I mean,
Hmm.
I don't. I mean, what do you got?
We're
60 people?
seven right now. We're 18 actually on the road.
Okay. So,
So
but like you just mentioned, it's like you don't get to say, "Hey, I want to stop at this museum," or "Hey, I want to go stop here." It's like things just happen, and you go, "Okay."
yeah, I mean, there's a master tour, and you have a pretty strict schedule to get to venues.
Yeah.
But I mean, you have a lot of free time during the day when you get to different places. By now, I feel like we've done certain circuits so many times that obviously, like, I'm not as excited about the touristic like spots, but
Yeah.
you still get to find some really cool things to do. But it's 18 people, so it's a lot of people on that tour bus.
Yeah. Yeah. I was gonna say because like I go to Denver, or I used to pre-pandemic, 4 times a year. And so after a decade, you're kind of like, okay, I'm going to Denver again. It's like,
Hmm.
all right,
But I do love Denver.
I do too.
Um,
What?
I'm a big fan of Colorado.
Well, yeah. I mean, you got Red Rocks has got to be
Hmm.
phenomenal to play at.
It's definitely one of my favorite U.S. venues for sure.
What are some of your other
Magical.
favorites?
Um, I mean, in the U.S., definitely like Red Rocks along the California coast, like anywhere in Berkeley, San Francisco. I always love all those venues. The Greek is one of my favorite.
Yeah.
A lot of outdoor. I think the bigger outdoor venues tend to be, the older ones tend to be my favorite in the US, but pretty much all the Colorado, California
Do you guys
venues.
does Thievery focus on amphitheaters? Because we saw you at an amphitheater at the
We don't. I
Stadium.
think it's part of, it's the production
Okay.
team. And, but it's not really, no, I mean, we play a lot of clubs too, but that's why I'm saying those tend to be my favorite, just a beautiful outdoor night.
Yeah, versus the indoors. Because, like I
Mhm.
said, we've seen you twice, both outdoors. So
Which ones?
I saw at the Beach Life Festival where
Mhm.
we talked to you outside when we were roller skating,
Yeah, that was
and
awesome.
and then at the Orange County Fairgrounds.
Okay.
And I think was it Steel Pulse open for you guys?
Or we co-headlined, I think
Yeah,
that.
whatever. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't want to
Yeah,
offend
they're awesome.
any of the,
Yeah.
but I mean, it was definitely awesome. Like my wife is a huge Thievery fan, and I was a big Steel Pulse fan, so I saw
Mhm.
them 25
A
years
good
ago.
combo for you.
I was like, let's go.
Yeah.
So, is it strange? Thievery has some rabid fans. I mean,
Mhm.
like when I've said that, so a couple of people I've talked to about you being on the show, and they're like, "Oh my god,"
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty amazing. I meet people all the time that, are counting their show. I mean, they've been to
Yeah,
hundreds of shows, and they've been fans for as long as I've been in the band for, close to 22 years. I meet teenagers and with their parents that were like, my parents were listening to you guys. I'm like a thievery baby, basically.
yeah.
So that's, yeah, we definitely have some hardcore fan, which we wouldn't be here without them. So it's pretty nice.
When COVID hit and you couldn't travel, did that did that force you to work on new music, or did you just want to take some time off?
Um, Actually, the timing for us was a little weird because we had worked really hard with Night Glitter on our first record, and our release was that April. So it was a little bit of a blow in that aspect because we were really looking forward to a tour for that record. Ultimately, the silver lining is that we were able to promote it more, and people did, buy the record and try to contribute as much to the band. So with Night Glitter, it was a little hard. We had a little bit of a break. I think that's, the silver lining of just being home and spending more time at home.
Yeah,
We did all the COVID things, gardening and
record collection.
cleaning and spring cleaning and, cooking. And then eventually there was that like, let's just create for the sake of just getting out of our head and creating, but with not with the purpose of making a new record.
Right.
We just needed to like, you know, get the juices flowing because I think, everyone felt it, the ups and downs of like the pandemic, where you feel good for a moment and
Yeah.
then you like, borderline depression and then you feel excited again. So I think we decided to just force ourselves to work on some music, and we're just now kind of compiling everything and fine tuning to put out a new record, hopefully by the end of this year.
That's so. Are you plan on touring with it?
That's the goal. I think 2023 is kind of going to be a good focus for Night Glitter things.
It's so strange to hear. I mean, like you're at the beginning of 2022 still, kind of, and you know
I know, but everything,
you have to
to
plan it
think of
now.
the hundreds and thousands of bands that, it's that didn't tour, it feels like the airwaves are very packed right now. And a lot of people are trying to catch up for the years that they didn't tour. So I think realistically for us to just like pick and choose some good shows and try to put our best foot forward would be to just look ahead, because I think if you try to like scram some shows here and there, it's just not going to be what we really wanted for Night Glitter.
I interviewed the tour manager for Justin Bieber,
Mm-hmm.
and he's at the arenas and all that. And when the COVID hit, we were talking. He had just laid off 83 people, all of his staff, and it's just so. and that was 2020. And so he was like, well, Beaver 2020 didn't happen. So Beaver 2021, and now it's going to be Beaver 2022. And then, but he mentioned that he said the NBA was the biggest determining factor of their tour.
Certain shows.
Because the NBA gets first choice at the use of the arenas. And then it kind of just.
Oh yeah. And it trickles down to your little club that fits like 300 people. Yeah, we're learning all about this right now. Making some choices and decisions.
Well, like the guy that runs and owns Beachside Festival here in Redondo Beach, he also owned a St. Rock, which is a smaller club, probably about 300 people, maybe, I'm guessing. I saw missing persons there, English Beat, and but now it's for sale because he didn't, he didn't make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's happening, and I live in Austin, and it's happening a lot. I mean, a lot of venues closed down, which there are pros and cons. I feel like sometimes older clubs have a certain culture that they just can't keep up, or they're just not changing. So maybe it's a better thing but yeah, there's pros and cons to all of that. But yeah, we have a lot of venues that have been closing throughout the pandemic, and just that can't kind of keep up with all the changes.
Yeah, I mean, I'm literally this will air in a few weeks, but I'm heading to Hawaii on Saturday in 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
But two of my stores, for work, and two of my stores have closed down.
In Hawaii?
Yeah. They didn't make it, because all their business was tourist based.
Yeah, correct.
If you didn't let tourists in.
I mean, that happened to a really good friend of ours. I mean, that's in Costa Rica. We heard a lot of stores that were actually working really hard before the pandemic to open like sustainable, like organic, green stores just didn't make it because they were relying on that year to push their sales.
Yeah. I had a store. He has two stores up in Northern California. He opened up the bigger store in Salinas, February 2020. And then in March, they shut it down.
That's a bummer.
Like, you get all excited. It's like a new album.
Like a record. I know. There was a moment, it's just, you're kind of in pause, and I think it makes you, question. You get that like existential crisis moment where you're like, should we make more music? And we definitely went through this. John Michael Sheff, my partner in Night Glitter and my partner at home, he also plays with a lot of other bands. And one of the main reasons why we put Night Glitter together was just because we wanted to make music together and try to have a chance to tour together, because our schedules are kind of all over the place. And he's a lot more optimistic, even though I seem much more cheerful in person. I can be pretty pessimistic, and he's much more of an optimist that, we're just going to keep doing it. And like, who cares if people like it? We're doing it for us. And I think that's been we're just letting go of that first record and moving forward.
There you go. But hopefully you'll play some songs. You have some really good songs on it. So, I mean.
No, we're going to play it. The goal is just to be able to incorporate new material. I think, like a lot of people, we feel like the first record obviously was for that time, and I love a lot of the songs on there are songs that I really love performing. But I think everyone felt it during the pandemic that, being kind of restless. So I think the new material is just a little bit more upbeat or just different, like just a different kind of groove. So it'll be fun to try to incorporate all of them together live.
You mainly play the keyboards? Is that your...
I play the keys. I started as with piano as a kid, but then didn't play for a really long time, and then fell in love with synthesizers. And sometimes I think that John Michael is becoming even more addicted to synthesizers than I am, because he'll take the excuse of, I found you a new synthesizer for the studio.
Whatever works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think it's just really cool. I think I made it right on the cusp of the 70s. So I'm definitely a psychedelic space fan. And I feel like synthesizers just really bring that to life.
I think that, they allow you to play so many different types of music on one instrument.
Yeah, and a lot of music growing up in France, a lot of the music that I listened to was more cinematic space sounds, like Jean-Michel Jarre, and so it was just it kind of felt good to get back to that and mess around with synthesizers.
Yeah, because I know Rob has his own thing. He goes,
Hmm.
you know, so it's got to be nice that they understand about Night Glitter. They're not.
Yeah, actually, Garza's is super. He's been a fan from the beginning. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
He's actually playing in Austin a couple of weeks from now, and I'll sing a couple of songs with him. But yeah, we definitely he loves his synths as well. So,
Well, that's
mhm.
what I was going to say. It's like I guess you could if you were going to be a singer for a band, they might be like, hey, you sing with us. You don't do other projects.
Yeah,
Worry about that.
I think at first um, I had enough on my plate, and I had my daughter pretty young, so it was just a lot juggling motherhood and
Yeah.
touring with the band and finishing school. So it was a lot. And now, my daughter is in college, so we're replacing the empty nest with synthesizers.
I replaced it. I replaced my empty nest with the podcast. So
There you go. See,
yeah.
um, yeah, and yeah, Garza's both. Thievery has been very supportive of Night Glitter. I think it is when you collaborate with a band when it's ultimately not yours. I think it's best for you to, you know, do other things to keep you motivated and creative.
Well, you touched on it. I was going to ask you about what it was like raising your daughter. You mentioned earlier you weren't home for months at a time.
Well, so my daughter actually toured with us
That's
for a
awesome.
really long time. Was on the road and then homeschooled for a bunch. My mom actually lived really close, was in Dana Point back
Okay.
up till actually a couple of years right before the pandemic. And the summers were always at grandma's. So
Yeah,
if there were tours in the summer, she would go to grandma's. And the rest of the time, she would tour till she was about 12.
that's pretty cool.
And then I think there were years where she was like, I've had enough. But yeah, it worked. It happened. I feel pretty grateful that I had such an incredible community of musicians. At the time, there were definitely some people that didn't realize how hard it was in the band. And recently, I've had conversations with a couple of band members who are parents now, and
How'd you do
they're like,
it?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I started touring with Shiva when Shiva was 2 months old. So I think a lot of
Crazy.
people, when you don't have kids, you don't realize
Yeah.
how intense it is. But at the same time, I feel like I want to encourage women who are in the industry to be able to understand that they can balance both. I think a
Yeah.
lot of women in the entertainment industry worry that it's going to like put a stop in their career or that they can't do both. But I think it's healthy for both people. Kids grow up in this environment with you. My daughter is incredibly creative and is studying audio engineering in school now, and is an incredible illustrator. But I also feel like I didn't need to choose. I think
Yeah.
people maybe want to choose, but you don't have to.
Well, I've interviewed many mothers on the
Mm-hmm.
show who, everybody travels for work. One of the girls, and she lives in, she's the North Texas sales rep for what I do, which is Stetson. And she gave birth while she was on the road to two kids, and she, her answer is,
Make it work.
you make it work.
You gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah. Her husband's a middle school teacher, so he has a little more
Sounds
steady
good.
schedule. But the kids, I just saw them in January when I went to Dallas. They're out on the road helping out mom.
Yeah. Yeah, Shiva's dad was actually one of the MCs with Thievery at the time.
Okay.
So Shiva had both mom and dad, even though we ended up, putting an end to our relationship, we were still really close friends.
Yeah.
We always joked that it was one of those like VH1 behind the scenes, that we were pretty happy family on the road. So that was actually nice. I felt like Shiva had the experience of both mom and dad on the road by being on the road. If she wasn't touring with us, she wouldn't get to see both of us as much. So
Well,
that
that's
was
good
kind of incredible.
that's good that you didn't have to give it up because he wasn't going to give up what he did, right? I mean,
Yeah. So there you go.
yeah. But do you like being an empty nester?
Well, I mean, so let's reel it back. Shiva just moved back.
Yeah.
So we're in between the emptiness. Shiva moved back
Yeah,
and is
but
going
she's in
back
her
to
20s,
school,
right? So I mean,
but 21 and kind of in and out. I think I'm coming to terms with enjoying it, and there's certain letting go that you have to do as a parent, that can be really difficult. And but at the same time, I'm enjoying watching this independent creature just thrive. So there's I'm learning. I'm learning.
I struggle with that. I just had this talk with my friend. I said, you know, I have two daughters. They're 27 next month and 28. The
Yeah.
youngest one got married last year. So, I mean, you know,
Congratulations.
but I go for 19 years, 18 years of their life, you're part of their everyday.
I know.
Put your shoes on, eat this, don't do this, do this. And 10, you're supposed to just,
Silence.
now I got to let you make mistakes. It's like, no.
Yeah, that's what I'm learning. I also just try to constantly compare things that just didn't make me feel good about my upbringing. Not like, crazy, but just, there were certain things that my parents did that didn't make me feel so great, or the way they tried to, control certain situations. And I have to like constantly have that internal dialogue with myself.
Yeah.
Don't repeat those same mistakes. And it's tough, but parenting is not easy. So
I saw a motivational speaker, and I try and share as much as I can because it changed the way I think. The person that he was talking to was like, I hated my dad growing up, and he was a hole and just was mean, and hit me and beat me. And the motivational speaker goes, you know what you need to do? You need to call him tonight and thank him. And like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I'm not thanking that person. He goes, you need to thank them because the way they treated you, you now know how you want to treat others.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
hopefully, with the right amount of therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's all part of it. I mean, because you hear things growing up, I mean, my dad said I had a terrible voice just when I was a kid. So I grew up thinking I had a terrible voice. Now I do this show and people, I've had compliments on my voice, and I'm like, I can't.
You have a good radio voice.
I can't accept it, because 20 plus.
No, I mean, it's the same for us. For me, it's interesting. Like my dad really traveled a lot, also for soccer, and then later on for journalism and activism. I grew up in a family of activists. I think one of the lessons that I learned is, to try to be as active in your immediate family and community than you are with the big picture. Yeah. I think that's important. So that was kind of one of the things that I focused on. I mean, what you said about like thanking parents, I think that's part of it. Just wanting to make sure that you don't make the same mistakes, but also like forgive that situation and make sure to talk to I just don't want Shiva to feel the same way I did of like wanting to get out and leave, because I just wanted independence so badly. But I think I did a pretty good job if Shiva's coming back at 21.
You did okay. You did okay. That, or she just really doesn't want to. Wants to save up her money and.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think it's feeling safe that there's always space for you.
And that's what I've always told my daughters. I'm like, the younger one, she's married, and she lives outside of Knoxville, and in Tennessee, and the other one lives in Santa Monica. And I'm like, you guys I'm not ever going to stop being your dad. So I mean, you'll always have that. It's like, but
yeah, it's interesting. Also, just we were speaking about this with Frank, actually, Poi Dog Thievery Frank Gorel, about different cultures and how, in the US, like with my upbringing and just my family, we have this like nuclear family lifestyle where when people get older or family wants to stay close and
Yeah.
kind of try to stay as close as possible. Um, and I think that that's something that I hope that people do more of, these days. Maybe something like the pandemic makes people realize that it's nice to actually try to have as many loved ones closer because you really create that community within your own family. Because something that I notice here is just it's there is a strange culture of like as soon as you get to that 21 mark or you move, you start cutting your cord with your family and people don't really interact with each other. And it's not that they just don't like their parents, even people who love their parents and their grandparents tend to just not be as connected anymore. And I hope that as like a culture, people change that because I think it's a little, I don't know. It's just not how we were brought up.
I agree with you. I think the pandemic, you know, I mean, you couldn't go to funerals, you couldn't go to weddings,
Mhm.
you couldn't you couldn't go to birthday parties and
Yeah.
congregate, and I mean, so now
And
when
those
you
are
have those things,
important
hopefully,
connections.
yeah,
I know for me, for example, I wasn't able to go to my grandparents' funerals
yeah,
because we were exiled from Iran for a long time when we moved to France and then the US. And my grandparents were in Iran when they passed away, and I couldn't go back at the time. And I felt like years later, I dealt with that kind of mental trauma of not having closure with my
yeah,
family or not being connected to my roots. And I felt like I watched that during the pandemic with a lot of people who are just in different states,
absolutely,
and it creates like there's just a lot you don't really you have to have closure with those kind of situations. You have to be able to grieve
oh
and
yeah,
make space for that. I later on did it with like a few sessions of meditation and ayahuasca and like spending time
yeah.
kind of sitting with my feelings and trying to connect with my roots, which was pretty amazing. And I finally had closure, but this was like 10 years later.
I think that's going to be huge because, like, even for me, like my cousin passed away during the pandemic in Dallas, outside of Dallas,
Mhm.
and we weren't allowed to go see him.
Yeah.
You know, my niece got married, my sister's daughter got married, and it was like a shotgun, and then my daughter got married during the
Yeah.
pandemic, so we couldn't gather, and then we
It
had
is
a
tough.
yeah.
I'm hoping that it brings people closer together.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I agree.
Same.
Because just like musicians, right? I spoke with Maxi Priest
Hmm.
right at the beginning, and he's like, I wanted to be on break for so long.
I
I
did
was just
too.
I was just tired, and he goes now I'm stuck in Jamaica. You know, I
He
want to
wants
go.
to get
I
out.
want to get back out. Enough's enough.
So actually, it's interesting you bring it up. The year before, so this was what, 2019.
Mhm.
2019, we're touring a bunch with Thievery. I definitely reached a place where I was just a little bit jaded, and I also wanted to focus on night glitter.
Yeah,
Um, so I actually quit. I quit Thievery at the last tour, which was December
of 19.
of 19. I quit. I kind of was like, I'm taking a break.
Yeah.
And then, boom.
So are you guys, by the way.
Exactly. That's actually Garza when we had a phone conversation. He's like, you
Did you
did,
know?
didn't you? But, and then 2 years went by,
Yeah.
and I actually started feeling like I mean, obviously I missed touring and I missed, but I even missed Thievery, which I know it sounds crazy, but
Yeah.
after 19 years, 20 years, it was just, I needed a change, but I actually looked forward to it. And I got really excited when they reached out, and Rob literally said, I know you took a break.
And
You
you had it.
you ready to come back? And I was like, yeah, I think I am actually. Um, and I'm really happy I did, because this past year, since the past 2-3 tours have been amazing. We've just been revisiting old songs, and we have a new bass player who's amazing as well. And it just feels like the band is going through a little bit of a revival, which is really nice. And we're all musically excited. And
Yeah.
I haven't felt that for years. So I've been really excited to be on the road again with Thievery.
I think that the pandemic, and it's like many things in life. I remember the days of changing diapers, and I remember swearing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
But now I look back with fondness, and I think the pandemic's kind of be the same way. Like everyone was like blah 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 blah, but then it
Yeah, I mean, I think there's pros and cons. There's a silver lining, hopefully, for a lot of people. I know that
sure.
there are also a lot of people who suffer tremendously.
Yeah.
Like in Austin, I know that, I'm sure it's like that in a lot of places, but like our houseless community has like quadrupled.
Yeah.
So I know that it's been hard, and there's definitely a lot of hardship, but there is also a lot of positive for a lot of families and a lot of silver linings. So I think a lot of people will look back, and there are certain things that they would have never been able to do
Yeah.
if they weren't kind of forced to be together. I mean, I know so many families that actually took so many road trips,
Yeah.
and they would have never done that. They probably would have waited till the parents retired, or there was like some opportunity like 6-7 years down the line. So
Like I said, it's my wife, who's a Pilates instructor, lost all of her work. I mean, they closed all the gyms down. So it's like, oh, what do I do? And you kind of figure things out and make it work. And then when you get to go back, you kind of get re-inspired.
mm-hmm, definitely.
But at the time, it sucked.
It did, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I try to keep busy. I have friends in Austin that actually, a group of musicians in Austin started this little company called Free Lunch. And through donation base and sponsorship, they've been cooking meals for like homeless people throughout the pandemic. And now they're continuing, and they have all these free fridge around Austin where people can go and stock them up for people who need meals. So one of the things that I did was like focus on whatever made me feel like I was being able to help other people.
Yeah.
Because we were really lucky that ultimately it didn't affect us on like that scale.
Sure.
Emotionally it did, but not as far as our lifestyle or financially. And so we focused on like cooking for the homeless, or I actually ended up, I have friends that own a French restaurant, and they lost a bunch of employees, and they were reopening during the pandemic. And they lost their general manager who wanted to move, who had kind of, that change of heart that this was the time to get on the road. And so I ended up jumping as a general manager of this restaurant, which, looking back now, I laugh. That's like the most stressful, but that's kind of my personality. It's like go in with a smile, like it's tough, we'll get through it. And I was the general manager of a restaurant during at least a good year and a half during the pandemic. But I love French food. The restaurant plays only vinyl music, and it's a huge outdoor space. And I felt like I actually kept my sanity, because I'm so used to being around a lot of people that I needed to like get back out there. So, I mean, the whole mask thing was pretty difficult for a while, just being in the service industry, but at least I was around a really good community of people. And then I stopped actually last September because the roads were opening up. So I got back.
What a great story, though. I mean, that's lemonade from a lemon right there.
But 100%. And I love the owners, Pierre and Justine of this restaurant, are this really quirky, cool couple. And it was just felt like I left a crazy musical circus family for a crazy restaurant, wild troubadour circus. So that was fun.
That's pretty awesome. And then now you get to go back.
I mean, I feel like it's one of the favorites of Austin. It's a favorite restaurant, and we were really happy that they actually thrived. They ended up, making it, which a lot of other people didn't. But yeah, now I get to go back.
I have a musician friend, and he's out touring again with a really big band, but they didn't tour, so he did the same thing. I don't know if he general managed, but he managed a barbecue place outside of Dallas.
I mean, food and music come
Yeah, yeah,
hand in hand. I feel like I know a lot of musicians who are also in the not just service industry, but just also like really foodies and
yeah.
chefs. And actually, our own Frank Oral in Thievery and Poi Dog does his like chef nights, where he's an incredible cook, so he'll cook and then he'll serenade you, and so I think I see that a lot in a lot of musicians.
Do you think the foodies is because you travel so much and you
I think that's
expose
part
to
of
a lot of
it.
different
You
things?
experience, I mean, you broaden your palate.
Yeah,
You get to experience so much of the world through flavors and spices. But I think there is something in just also the rhythm of cooking
yeah,
and making music. I think they're both very meditative, and there's something about it that's just about surrendering and going with the flow. Like for me, cooking, it brings me as much. It's
sure.
different, but brings me as much like
It's the same
as much
process.
joy, yeah,
Yeah,
as making music. There's something magical. All your senses are active.
yeah.
So I mean, and I also know a lot of chefs who just can't cook without listening to music, or can't have to be a part of that too. So
Well, so as a musician, what do you? Yeah, how do you fill up your downtime when you're on the bus, or are you
the
listening to music, or you
International Supper Club.
watching YouTube
It's
how to
true,
cook?
actually. I mean, there we actually do have the International Supper Club when we travel. A group of us that we get together, and we definitely map out restaurants and
Yeah.
farm to table. Just this weekend, the first text exchange I had with our drummer, Jeff Franca, he was like, I know you get in late on the first night, so let's have a family supper on the Sunday because the show ends early. I mean, we love getting together and having, family meal. I think it's just, that's when you actually get to spend time with people.
I was gonna say. I mean, I've been with the company I'm with now for I think this is my 12th, 13th year. And like you've been with Thievery for 20.
Yeah.
I mean, they do become your family. Like when I see
Yeah.
them at the rodeo, I work at the National Finals Rodeo in Vegas. We do
Hmm.
16 straight days, no days off.
Yeah.
And
You need that like moment to just come together and
yeah,
celebrate.
and it's when we see each other because like well, most of the people I don't see except for NFR.
Hmm.
But now after 12 years, I know their kids, I know what's going on because through social media and all that.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
one of my favorite people on the road with Thievery, for example, is our front of house, Jean Maria Conti. He's an incredible musician, a total gearhead, has a little bromance with my partner, Joe Michael.
it happens.
And I don't get to really actually see him during our heavy like dates, because he's front of house, he's loading out, loading
Yeah,
in. So we really look forward to like actually going out and having a meal because we all get to hang out and actually have conversations, after the show, getting on the bus. It's not like where you're going to have the breakthrough moments. I mean, some are good, but, people are exhausted. So, yeah, I mean, you look forward to
and everyone has different rhythms on the
what?
bus, right? Uh, uh, I would think a lot of people have different rhythms on the bus.
Yeah, I mean, crew has to wake up early.
Yeah,
So, which doesn't stop all of them from, staying up. But yeah, everyone has different, rhythms, and being so many people on the bus, you try to also be respectful of everyone's
yeah.
space and not be too crazy. I mean, there's so many different stages of the our tour life in Thievery. There was like the Roaring Twenties, I call it, where we had two buses, and it was the liquor wagon and the holy roller, so the quiet and the
Yeah.
wild. And then little by little, I mean, we're also getting older, or just people have different needs, and we're also just like kind of downsized, so we're all on one bus. So yeah, we try to compromise and be respectful of each other. So you can't really do all the catching up and partying on that one bus anymore.
I would say I think I would have a hard time personally being on a bus with 18 people
Well, so it's 16
or
people
whatever.
on one bus, and then an RV for a few others. It's definitely it's something that you have to get used to, and it's
Yeah.
requires a lot of discipline as far as like how to just kind of create your own space. I actually love. I can listen to audiobooks and watch movies in my bunk and
Yeah.
listen to music. Um, but I also love just sitting in the back lounge and staring out the window at the road and listening to music. So for me, it's easy, and it's not that much time, from city to city. You do most of the driving at
At
night
night.
when you're sleeping. So it's just really finding what helps you just fall asleep. And when you wake up, you get to be in a different city, so you don't have to stay on the bus and you get up.
I was gonna say,
But
can you share a little bit like if I go to a concert and I watch you
mhm,
guys from 7 to 9:30,
yeah.
right? I go home and I'm like
Hmm.
10 o'clock. I'm in the bed. You guys not so much. I mean, what time do you have to start? What time do you guys get there, set up?
So usually, like, let's do like a kind of average day. Um, you get to a city, you get the bus parks next to a venue at like 10 a.m.
Right.
10 a.m. At 12 o'clock or 11:30 or 12, load in. So the crew gets off the bus,
Starts prepping.
and they load out and get into the venue. The band doesn't have sound check till about 3:30 or 4. Um, you wake up at, like, let's say I wake up at 11. The bus has been there. I wake up at 11, or I wake up before, but you wake up at 11, you make coffee, you get dressed, and you head out and wander around, go get some lunch somewhere in the
Okay.
city. You get back to the venue at 3 o'clock. You do sound check, and then we have day rooms for showering, like at a hotel nearby. So you get to go after sound check, take a shower, do your thing. Some people go out to dinner, some people walk around. We don't have to be back at the venue till 7:30 or 8, for example.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the crew is there
Go to
all day.
work.
So they're there all day. Um, then once you have the show, your show ends. Let's say you get on stage at 9, the show ends at 11. The crew is loading out. We get to socialize for a little bit, meet some fans outside, and then you have to be back on the bus at 2 a.m. The bus is going to start rolling at 2 a.m. So, you get to go back to the hotel, take another shower, pack up, put your stuff on the bus. You're back on the bus by like 1 a.m. The bus driver wakes up, comes to the bus. I mean, he's at a hotel all day
Yeah.
sleeping. And then he gets back, load in is done. The bus starts rolling at 2. People tend to like hang out a little bit. We have these like funny George Foreman grill contest. Our drummer
Yeah.
loves to cook up a storm on that George Foreman grill. And you go to bed by like 3:34, um, and you do that again the next day.
Wake
And
up in a
usually
different
it's
city.
like four to five shows in a row, or 4 shows in a row, and then you
Yeah.
have a day off. But that's kind of the routine.
Now, do you have to do anything as the singer? Do you have to do you have to do anything for your voice
So
or
for me, actually, I mean, usually vocal warm-ups are more in case I feel a little bit under the weather.
okay.
For me, um, I on this past tour, my goal was to do Pilates, like mat Pilates
Oh, wow.
and yoga every day. I started back in January where I went every day till we went on tour.
Yeah.
And I try to maintain that on tour. So it was nice. I actually had different teachers come into the venue. So I would
Oh,
do
neat.
sound check and do a Pilates or yoga class right after sound check. For me, it's just getting enough movement and then feeling grounded. So I usually try to do it when I wake up, before sound check, or after sound check. I know it's different for everybody, but I think for me personally, if I have enough movement and I feel in a good place, I think the voice is just about warming it up. I also don't really drink as much. I kind of stopped for a little bit back in December. I realized that I'm more of a psychedelic lady, less of an alcohol
Yeah.
person. So, and that helps too, to not drink. So, yeah, I think getting enough movement, yoga, and Pilates have been like just strengthening the core, which I think is where everything comes from. So,
Absolutely. I was going to say, yeah, I'm obviously I'm going to share this with my wife because she'll be so excited that
yeah, I love hearing that that's it's kind of changed actually. I mean, I think like a lot of people, I gained a lot of weight during the pandemic because I am usually a traveling
yeah,
more, my lifestyle is pretty active, and not being as active, working at a French restaurant, cooking up a storm,
I was going to
I
say,
ended gaining a lot of weight. So when we got back on the tour, that's when, I mean, I knew I did. It's not like I was in denial, but it really hit me that I just needed to like get back in the
yeah,
groove just for health reasons, and just also for what we're talking about, just feeling good to like not only
no,
sing but also just transcend that like positive energy. You have to just feel like you're feeling good to be able to give that to the audience. So back in January, I started doing Pilates here in Austin, and I fell in love. For the longest time, I felt that Pilates was like the Mean Girls, like the Heather
oh, really?
crew. Yeah, for some reason, I think in my mind it was
That's
like I wish
funny.
that I saw the like the cool hippie ladies that had been doing the reformer forever, because I would have. But I think it was like in pop culture, I just thought it was like just Mean Girls, and so
Oh,
I never tried it. I was like, I don't know, yoga seems more like peaceful. But I ended up going and I fell in love. I fell in
yeah,
love with the reformer. It's actually such an incredible safe space that it's called Peach House Pilates in Austin. And I started going 5 days a week for about a month. And then we had some tours coming up. And I ended up booking mat Pilates
that's
teachers
so
to
cool.
come and continue. And it changed. I also realized that I have more inner strength than I did in my 20s. Like I have more core strength than I
Yeah,
did. I had a C-section with my daughter, so I told myself that I just had no, like my muscles were gone, like because
yeah.
I
They cut
just
them out.
they cut them out. They're not
Yeah.
there. And after a week of Pilates, I remember telling Joe Michael, I think I broke something. My stomach hurts so bad,
Oh,
and it was actually waking up muscles that I've had all along. So it's
I
been a
feel you on
really
that one.
journey, and so that's my recipe right now
I'm
for.
the wife. I'm my wife's guinea pig. So
Yes,
she,
I
she
mean that's what you're lucky.
yeah, I'm lucky. Are you able to stick out the right leg while the left leg stays in tabletop, holding the stick and with the ball in the left hand? I'm like, I don't think so, but I'll try.
It's amazing. It's taught me a lot just about myself, my inner strength, and also just it's kind of liberated some things that I was holding on to that I
Sure.
couldn't do, or that weren't for me. Now I feel like I have some new horizons to explore.
Now you're a mean girl.
I know.
You're one of them.
No, no, I feel like now I get it. It's a secret weapon.
No, you know what? My wife started doing Pilates because she got hurt. She was a cocktail waitress, and so
Hmm.
she had ripped up her shoulder
Lower back and
and her arm,
and
right? So she started doing Pilates as part of her physical therapy,
hmm.
and then she loved it so much that she was going a lot, kind of like you. And then the owner of the studio is like, we have a teachers program.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely like created a little buzz in there too, as far as like different paths or just like different experiences. Um, I also just touring and that schedule that I just went through, like sleeping on a bus, waking
Yeah.
up, sitting down, getting up, traveling, luggage, I started having some serious lower back pain. And
Because your core
since
was
I
in such
started
position.
Pilates, it's gone.
Yeah.
Like everything feels like pretty good. The one thing that I work on is like ankle pain from an old accident, and that too. So look, musician, Pilates fanatic. Yay.
You know who else is a Dita Von Teese?
Oh, I can see that.
Yeah.
Goals.
Yeah. So
Amazing.
yeah, and she's out touring, you know, and but she does
Mhm.
Pilates when she's home, and she does mat when she's on tour.
Yeah, I didn't even know that how hard mat, because once you get hooked on the reformer, you're like you need the machine, and then you realize mat is actually a lot harder. You're
Oh,
really
different. Yeah.
pushing yourself. Yeah, in the studio that I go to, a lot of professional like athletes
Yeah.
and musicians and actors
Golfers.
are there
Yeah.
because now I get it. It actually really does. It's tough. It's not an
It,
easy.
it, I tell you something. As a man, you know, athlete, played football, wrestled, jujitsu, you know, and I would go to the class with my wife, and she'd, you know, be like six of us lined up,
Yep.
and I'm next to an 80-year-old woman and a 60-year-old woman and a 40-year-old. They're all women mainly. And
Yeah.
I'm in there, and we're all doing the same thing, and I'm like, oh, I can't do this, you know. But
I know.
just change one spring, and all of a sudden, you you can't do
Yeah, and one of the things that I love about it is just you get what you put in. I think
it. Yeah.
I tried it years ago, and in my class, like no one was breaking a sweat, and everyone just seemed to like roll their eyes and like push. I think that's what I meant, the mean girl vibe. And I realized,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. I got you.
well, you could do that. I could go to class and not break a sweat and
Yeah.
make it super easy with the reformer and just barely, like, with
But
the
yeah, there are definitely yeah. Yeah.
there are ways around it, but then if you actually put 100% of yourself in it and you really follow the instruction and you push yourself as far as the resistance and really relying on yourself, I think it's relying on yourself, like a lot of deep stuff in there that you really get an incredible. I mean, I'm sweating the whole time in class,
Yeah.
and there, there are certain things that I feel like it brings, or I don't know how to explain it, but yeah,
Well,
I'm a fan. I'm a fan.
my wife always tells me you're working small muscles that you don't, you know, you're not working your quadriceps, you're not working your glutes, you're working all the small muscles that you typically don't work. So I was going to ask, do you think that helped with your singing in the?
100%. Well, I mean, the core itself
Yeah.
and my lungs, and I also like I didn't realize until I started doing Pilates that if you focus and if you're doing it right, you actually don't need to do certain exercises that long.
That's right.
And I think that when I first embarked in my like weight loss or just fitness regimen, I think I was going about it the wrong way where I was like, I need to dedicate like 2.5 hours a day. Like I need to
Yeah.
like train. And that actually overwhelmed me because I am, you know, I don't think I have that kind of attention span. And also certain other trainings, my mind was just so active. And I think that in Pilates, because it's so core oriented and it really requires you to
Focus.
like focus,
Yeah.
that I don't think about anything else. And that's been kind of amazing for me because in working out at the gym, I'm drifting. Like
Yeah.
and once
I
your
should be doing
mind
this, or
drifts,
I gotta get that down. And
yeah, and once your
yeah.
mind drifts, you lose that like
Yeah.
whole connection. So I've been loving Pilates and also yoga, just focusing and listening to the teacher and trying to
We
just.
started going to sound baths.
I love sound
We have a
baths.
friend that she opened up a sound bath studio here in Redondo, and
Mm-hmm.
we had just checked it out with another friend who was doing in the yurt,
Mm-hmm.
big tent in Palm Springs, and we had just watched it. And then I walked down to get my hair cut next to the barber's a new sound bath, so I ended up talking to her, and
Yeah,
now we're friends.
I love sound baths. I actually work with a yoga instructor, two yoga instructors, a breath worker, and yoga instructor who does sound bath, and we do some events together where I'll DJ or play music throughout and after. And we recently did a sound bath where it really can be so powerful if you really like surrender to that moment. I love it. I'm definitely a fan.
Too. I think in my 20s or 30s I wouldn't have been. Just as a guy and male and this and this.
Totally.
But in my 50s, I'm like, man, I'm like you. I'm a Gemini, so I kind of get that. I have my work going, I have my kids, I have my wife, I have my podcast. I want to exercise. I'm roller skating. I want to do, and so in my head, I never turned.
Well, we're like butterflies that just kind of hop around and want to dabble in a little bit of everything.
In this the sound bath, I found I just kind of
focus. Yeah, I feel
focus on nothing. It's awesome. I'm like you. I want to quiet my brain a little bit.
Yeah, I have to. Otherwise, I don't feel like I'm being productive the rest of the day if I'm all over the place all the time. Because I come up with so many ideas and I have so many things I want to do, but then if I'm not focused, I actually don't finish, So it's been really important for me too.
That's cool. I mean, that's, like I said, it's one of those steps where I go, man, if I would have known that in my 20s, if I would have taken the time to kind of center myself.
I know. You're here now.
Yep. You get what you get when you need it. It's kind of like us, right? You get what you get when you need it.
Yeah, exactly.
Look at this. So my wife can you read that? There you go.
Tell Loulou I love Thievery. We love her for loving Thievery.
200 episodes in, this is my first note that she secretly passed to me.
And she's a Pilates instructor.
Exactly. Yeah, but that's all timing, right? I mean, how much do you think? How much do you equate to timing? Just like you said, like it was bad timing.
I really try to surrender that everything happens for a reason. I know it can sound like, but I really believe that things happen in their own way. And as obviously you have to work hard at getting what you want, and you have to have like dedication and motivation. But I try not to look back at what ifs and I wish, because I think life's too short. And especially with everything that's happening these days, it's just trying to focus on getting healthier, better, and just moving forward. I think that's the goal. And sure, it probably comes with age too. Like you focus more on health when you get older. But I'm noticing I think it's not just age. I think it's the times we live in, because I'm noticing it with even the younger generation, and their focus is definitely more on, the environment and being healthier. And I mean, sure, my 21-year-old loves junk food here and there, but also I'm noticing like my 21-year-old eats goji berries on a daily basis. And but without me even like trying to do things, and like go swimming with friends, and tries to have these phases of like taking care of themselves more. And so I think it's just the times we live in.
My kids don't drink soda.
Yeah, my daughter doesn't either.
And I'm like, and I still do. I try not to. I'm kind of.
My daughter is a teaaholic.
Yeah.
Barely drinks coffee.
They drink water.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I know, it's just different times.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking that, hopefully it's also, the planet that we're handing down. I think they're trying to do their best too.
Yeah, and I think that's where social media kind of helps, right? I mean, when I'm much older than you, but
a lot. You're like a lot older than me.
I'm ancient. Yeah, I am. But I have my big birthday is June 15th.
June 7th.
Yeah.
Yours is a big one.
I have 55. I get a senior discounts coming up.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Looking good.
At restaurants, I get the senior discount now.
No.
Yeah. Unfortunately, Denny's offers a senior discount at 55. I'm gonna get carded. That's my goal. I haven't been carded in a while, so.
I giggle when I get carded, which is kind of probably the sign where they look at me like I shouldn't have asked her.
I like going out. We've been to a couple places that cards everybody pretty much, and I've gone out with my 28-year-old daughter, and she gets carded. I'm like, yeah, and then they go, you know, like really? That's mine. Like, yeah,
Mine.
pretty sure I'm old enough to be here if you just carded her.
I know.
So it's all good. So hey, I don't want to eat up any more of your time. I got you on one of your rare days off. I appreciate it. What's the best way for my listeners to follow you and what you have going on?
I think, social media, Instagram is definitely an easy way. I have Night Glitter Music on Instagram, and then I have my personal one, Loulou Ghelichkhani, on Instagram. I definitely update and put events and gigs on there. Also on Facebook, we have the band page on Facebook. I think those seem to be the best way, and I promise I'll get better at reels. It's a whole universe.
Let me know how.
I have a hard time. I think social media in general, it's not that I'm a crazy private person. I definitely live more in the moment.
Yeah.
I have a hard time capturing everything. I try for. I don't know that so much this generational thing. I think it's also just personality, because I have a lot of friends in all age groups that kind of agree that it just seems like a little bit of a downer to just constantly be on your phone.
I always told my daughters, I said, you think we didn't do all the stupid stuff you're doing?
Yeah.
We just didn't record it.
That's what I mean. That's exactly what I'm like. I think there's the positive aspect of being able to share with just a broader audience everything, as far as like the news and, but there is also that negative side where everyone has to be aware of everything. And I don't know, it's interesting. I'm not an anti, social media, but I'm not also like a fanatic that I'll get better at sharing reels. That's all I'm saying.
When I interviewed Wee Man, Jason Acuna, he said the same thing. Like, he didn't realize he was becoming famous. He was a pro skateboarder.
Mm-hmm.
But he would do his reels, his lives, and say, hey, we're here at, Harbor Park.
Totally.
And all of a sudden people would show up. And, he's like, oh, so he said he had to start doing the record. He would record something there and then post it the next day. Because all of a sudden people started showing up.
Yeah, totally.
So
that's cool.
Yeah, social media is, I think
pros and cons, like everything.
We make it what we get what we put into it, I guess.
Yeah, it's true.
So I appreciate the time. I'll make sure to include all the links, and I pretty much can guarantee that we'll be seeing Thievery when you guys come back.
Awesome.
So.
Look forward to it.
Night Glitter. Is Night Glitter going to come out to California?
Yeah, Night Glitter right now is finishing a record. We have some new songs that are going to come out soon. And the goal is to set up little tours, West Coast, East Coast, 2023.
Okay. Definitely. Yeah. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
So, thank you again, and enjoy the tour.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Loulou.
Bye.